Hey y'all, and welcome to Brawl. My name is Brian, and Markwayne Mullin completely wrecks Kaitlan Collins, and it's a constant reminder that this is the best CNN has to offer the American people. Markwayne Mullin hits a home run. Let's dive in.
He's wildly exaggerating how much eggs are down. They're not down 87%. If they were, people would be paying 50 cents for a dozen of eggs, which obviously you know that they're
the
not.
fact is they're down. And as I said, at the height...
Right, but why not just say exactly how much they're down?
Well, at the height, it was 9.1%. So it depends on what metric you're using. At 9.1%, they're down to 2.4% now. Inflation, that is a significant drop. That's not 50%. You're getting down to actual real numbers at that point. So it depends on which point you're talking about. We can discuss wherever we want to on the eggs of what source you want to say or at what time frame he may be referring to. The fact is, prices are down, and we see them continuously dropping.
But they're not down as much as he's saying that they're down for eggs. So I'm saying if my argument,
let's use the math. What's 9.1% down to 2.4%? What's the percentage?
I'm saying if the numbers are as good as you think they are, and as you're arguing, and that's number from the Agriculture Department, why not just say they're down 52% or 53% instead of 87%?
It's interesting to me that we're focused on the price of eggs when we know it's down. What I don't remember hearing is when Biden was in office and inflation was not 9.1%, about you talking about how high the prices were, or anybody, for that matter, actually saying, okay, why is inflation at 9.1%? Why are we averaging 4.95, nearly 5% of inflation? Why is it in the first 100 days? That should be the conversation. Why is it in the first 100 days that the president was able to bring down inflation to 2.4% and have $5 trillion of investment inside the United States? Why wasn't that happening in the last 4 years of the Biden administration?
I think if you asked anyone in the Biden White House, they got asked about inflation all day long. It was essentially one of the only questions reporters asked them. So I don't think that that's a fair criticism. But on the numbers, when you're looking at that, you know, this isn't some criticism from the media. It's the polling that voters are not happy with where the economy's going. They don't feel good about the president's policies, and they think they're making the economy worse. Why do you think that is?
Well, I would go, what demographic are they polling? Who are they talking to? Because when I'm talking to people in Oklahoma, or I'm talking to people in Texas, or I'm talking to people in Alabama, or wherever I'm traveling to, which granted I'm traveling to red states, they're very optimistic about where we're headed to. They're excited about what's happening inside the country. And I think investors are that way too, as I go back to it. In the first 100 days, we've had $5 trillion pledged to invest inside the United States. Why weren't they doing that underneath the Biden administration?
Yeah, I mean, I looked at the CNN polling. It was, I think, the sample that they surveyed, it was more Republicans than it was Democrats, and then a lot of independents in there as well. I mean, it was a pretty broad swath. And it's also not just the CNN poll. It's the ABC Washington Post poll. There's a Fox News poll that's out where his numbers are down. And so I guess the question is, when you look at that, is there any sense when you look at those numbers that the White House needs to change course?
Caitlin, numbers don't lie. Polling, you can skew however you want to. When I restate these numbers again, inflation is down to 2.4%. We're an average of 4.95%, 5% underneath the Biden administration.
Yeah, inflation is down.
9.1%. I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but when you have $5 trillion pledged of investment in the first 100 days, I believe the investors, I believe the job creators, those that create the jobs, that hire the individuals, I think it speaks for themselves. When you have 459,000 jobs that were part-time just 100 days ago, today they're full-time, I believe the economy is moving in the right direction. And so we should be talking about what has happened in the first 100 days. Why is it that the President Trump was able to do this and Biden couldn't?
The S&P 500 posted its biggest loss in the first 100 days of a presidency since Nixon in 1973. I mean, those are hard numbers.
Well, think about this. Well, think about the stock market. The stock market deals on today's news, not on the future. What the president is trying to do with the tariffs is he's trying to build a workforce for the future. We know without question that countries were taking advantage of the United States' generosity for years. That countries all across Europe, all across Asia have became wealthy on taking products that were once built inside the United States, build it in their country, and then selling it back to us and taking the dollars out. When the president said enough's enough, we're tired of countries taking advantage of us, we're going to right this ship and we're going to build a workforce for the future. The market that the president is building is going to be better for the future generation.
Folks, to quote Winston Churchill, Democracy is the worst form of government, except for all the other kinds. And in democracy, you have to deal with people like Kaitlan Collins, who is needling Markwayne Mullin as much as she possibly can over the price of eggs, which Markwayne Mullin has correctly said time and time again to his own quote, sounding like a broken record, saying that yes, egg prices are down, gas prices are down, inflation is down, okay? And then Kaitlan Collins tries to move in a different direction, saying that, oh, well, as it turns out, the polling is terrible for Donald Trump. And trust me, we'll get to that in just a moment. But Markwayne Mullin is trying to deal with a ridiculous problem here, and that is Kaitlan Collins. In short, she's a problem. We cover her a lot on this channel, just cringing at her dumb questions, cringing at the ideas and ideals that she keeps on spewing forward that don't make any sense, don't go anywhere, and don't actually deal with the problems that we have here in the United States. We have a problem with illegal immigration. We have a problem with other nations tariffing our goods and services. Our economy has been just in a malaise in both the Biden and Obama years. Let's be honest, folks. We've had an issue with our economy, and not just the stock market. We have had a problem with our economy that has been artificial, and that is under Democrat presidents, things are kept artificially low. Interest rates are kept artificially low. There is no attempt. And by the way, there's a talking point that I hear liberals squeal about on a consistent basis. It's the idea that, oh, almost all recessions happen under a Republican economy. Yeah, that's also where most of the growth ends up happening, by the way. What happens time and time again, that a Republican says, hey, we can't let the market continue under these conditions. We've got to change the conditions. And so the market ends up having a bit of a reaction, particularly in the stock market, because the market doesn't like having a reset. It never likes that. But smart stockbrokers know how to hold, they know how to sell high, they know how to buy low, they know how to wait things out and ride out the storm. The people who are panicking, on the other hand, are trying to get their money now, make a quick buck, and then move on with their lives. So the stock market, I'm sorry, when has the Democrat Party ever cared about the stock market? Wasn't there some sort of movement called Occupy Wall Street? Man, what happened to that movement? But again, democracy is a difficult system to work, particularly when you have to deal like bad actors like, Kaitlan Collins. So this is from Real Clear Politics. According to the RCP average of polls, the disapproval rate for the Trump administration is about 6.8%. But the Rasmussen report has about 48% approve, 50% disapprove. But it's interesting to note that every single time Social Security or Medicare gets brought up, there is a huge shift and tilt in voters, particularly in boomer voters. They know that Social Security is supposed to be there for them. They know that Medicare is supposed to be there for them. Well, guess what? It's the number one and number two expenditure of the federal government, Social Security and Medicare. And the mainstream media has picked up on this note, and they've run wild with it, lying about the Department of Government Efficiency, lying about what Elon Musk is trying to do to make sure that our government runs smoothly and that we're not wasting tax dollars, but he's also found massive amounts of fraud in both Medicare and Social Security. And unfortunately, when that gets picked up, instead of thinking, hey, maybe we do need to reform this, people don't hear we need to reform Social Security. They hear we need to cut Social Security. That's not on the table, okay? That hasn't been on the table since 2005, when the Republican Party started talking about this issue 2 decades ago and started saying, hey, we've got to reform these things. There's going to be a problem. Well, the mainstream media lied about their rhetoric. They lied to the American people, and they said that the Republican Party wanted to cut Social Security to the bone. That is happening again 2 decades later. It's the same exact playbook, and don't be fooled by this nonsense. Cutting Social Security and Medicare is not on the table. It's not even in the lexicon of what Republicans are trying to do. And so these polls, I'm not as worried about them, but it's a reminder that the mainstream media and what happens with low information voters, by the way, rest in peace, Rush Limbaugh, the low information voters are eating this slop up and believing it as truth. The reality is Social Security is not being cut. Inflation is down. Egg prices are manageable. Gas prices are down. Success is occurring, and now there's $5 trillion being invested in the American economy. This is a successful presidency, and we're just past 100 days. And this is still the power of the mainstream media. They continue to lie and obfuscate and lie by omission. Do not be fooled by this nonsense. And Markwayne Mullin is speaking truth to power, and Kaitlan Collins is doing her best to run point for the absolute moronic principles of the Democrat Party. Folks, my name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on Brawl. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one, and until then, y'all have a good one.